Welcome back to the Expert Scale Show. Today, I am joined by the two goats of webinar marketing. If you have run a webinar, are running webinars, or see yourself running a webinar at any point in the future, this may be one of the most valuable 45 minutes of your life you've spent. We have Anik Singal, we have Jason Fladlien in one room to talk about webinars. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited. Jason, welcome to the show.
I'm ready to go, baby. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So just to tee you guys up, Anik, everybody knows about you. You started this show. You know, you are the great behind the brands that we're talking about all the time here. Jason, in case anybody has lived in a cave for the last 20 years or whatever, you are often known as the $100 million webinar man. I think your number is actually closer to 250 million that you sold over webinars. Right?
Between myself and my clients and the people I've advised,
Yeah, pretty incredible. You actually hold the record for the all-time biggest launch in the internet marketing space, which is pretty cool. And you've generated just massive launches, huge affiliate commissions, tons of information products. And most people don't know this, but you were a rapping monk who started studying marketing. So how in the world do you go from rapping monk to webinar goat? Just give us a little insight there.
You say, hey, I can't sell my music product, so let me figure out how to do that. And then you get caught up in the idea of selling, period. And you say, I'll get to the music later. I'm going to make some money first. And then you never get back to it.
What an awesome, concise answer. That was brilliant. So we're going to talk today about webinars, guys. And I know some people are thinking when they hear this, like, webinars, really? Like, is it 1990? Like, where are we? Why don't we talk a little bit to just start off about webinars? Like, guys, are they dead? There's a lot of noise in the info space. People making all sorts of claims. Webinars don't work anymore. I'm going to pitch it to you, Jason, since you're our guest today first. Are webinars dead? Why or why not? Give us the lowdown.
Okay, so about a week ago at this point in time, I get on a call with Hormozi for his new book launch that's coming up. I don't know when people will see this released, but he's launching a book in mid-August, and it's like July right now. And he's going to pay me a lot of money to do consulting for him for this book launch. This is the newest book launch. And guess what they're launching it with? It starts with a W, and it ends with an R. Webinar. He's launching it with a webinar, and he's paying me to help him launch it with that webinar. And he paid me the last time he did a launch for a book, which was a webinar. Like, I don't know, man. It's, and then, unfortunately I was running late to this call because I got caught up with a client right before this. We do a standing Tuesday consult, Iman Gadzhi. And so we did a launch with him earlier this year that it broke the record in its marketplace. It did 8 figures in 48 hours and 19 minutes. So for WAP, which is where it's published on, that broke the 30-day record. So it broke the day record, they broke the week record, and the month record. And what we did there was a series of webinars. So we did webinars over a certain period of time, because if one webinar is good, gentlemen, I found 2 webinars are better. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this yet, but with Alex last time did 1 webinar. This time he's doing more than 1 webinar. So they're only dead for people who are looking for the easiest path to try the least amount of work and get the most amount of money. Hey, was that ever alive? Is that ever really a thing? Some people can win the lottery, but does that make lottery ticket buying a valid strategy? And the answer is no. So webinars are thriving more than ever. However, they are harder to do compared to how they used to be done. You could stumble through a webinar in the past and do reasonably well. Now you got to have it dialed in if you really want to do good with webinars. Otherwise, people would just be like, I got too many other choices, bro. I'm not going to sit on this boring webinar with you. So you can't be boring anymore. So boring webinars are dead.
Boring webinars are dead. I love that. So then what's the new way? Like, and Anik, feel free to chime in at any point, because I know you have tons of insight. You and I have talked about this too.
Well, I'll add to it a little bit, right? So I bring a perspective to webinars from the cold markets. I've done a lot. Most of my webinar sales have come from cold market versus warm markets. I've done a lot of warm markets as well. But and funny enough, my launches that I used to do, and we did, I think from my personal record, was a $12 million product launch that we did with affiliates. I always did the 3 webinar model. So I always said, we're going to do a W launch, which basically starts with your webinar one. You have a really high peak of sales. And then, as always happens with a 7-12 day launch, kind of like trails off. And then I wanted that little bump in the middle because, I wanted to give it some life in the middle and give affiliates some reason to something to do and talk about in the middle, because the messaging is getting redundant. So then we would do webinar number 2, which would be in the middle and give you a little bump up. And then again, it would kind of go quiet, and then we'd do the one big finale event towards the end. So 3 webinars, and so you'd end up getting a sales, cycle that looked like a W. It actually never looked like a W. It always had some kind of wavy shape, but it makes the point. And so, that's I can't remember how many launches I've done with the 3 webinar model, and it just works. It gives your affiliates so much more stuff to talk about. It gives you 3 different hooks and angles to hit in a short time, and it gives people different places to plug in. So like a lot of times when you just have a one webinar thing, a lot of people at the end of that just feel like, I missed it, blah, blah, blah. No, they have other opportunities to kind of get caught back into that launch. Here, so I took that, and then we started doing a lot of paid traffic and ads going straight to evergreen webinars, and we just absolutely killed it with that for years. And the lazy guy inside of me was just like, yeah, this is the way we're doing it now. Like, I don't want to do live webinars, maybe once a month with my audience. But so to give a little credence to those out there who try to, harbor the message of webinars are dead, I will throw them a bone. And I will say that direct to webinar from cold traffic isn't dead, but it's a damn hard now. To the degree that it's I'm not doing it.
Doesn't make sense,
right here,
right?
So Board of Webinars, which is the program about webinars, right? And that's where Jason and I have our program that we're promoting at the back end of it. We have a webinar to promote our program about webinars, and we will not be going cold market traffic to that webinar. We are going to go first into Board of Webinars, which will have its own funnel. It's a free lead capture. It's warm them up. It's get people, engaged, and then take them. So what I would tell people is this. Those who are used to having webinars on the front end for cold traffic, it's too difficult for 2 reasons. One, the cost of traffic has gone like 3x what it was just a few years ago. 3-4x, okay? And it's not going down anytime soon, by the way. It's only going to keep going up. Second is, I know this term's used a lot and thrown around. It's becoming kind of cliche to say trust recession, but it's a real thing. We genuinely have that problem. Jason was alluding to it earlier. It's not just people getting bored. Someone who doesn't know you almost doesn't even want to spend 60 to 90 minutes with you because they know they're just going to get pitched. But when they know you, like you, trust you, they're excited. They actually are like, shut up and pitch me. Like, I'm waiting for the pitch. And so the process of getting someone to a webinar has evolved greatly. And for those who can really master that process, they're just going to crush it. And so that's where what Jason and I are putting together, that's where it just that marriage was just perfect, right? Like, once you're in that warm spot, Jason's going to show you how to get those people converted like crazy. And then I'm almost the guy that says, okay, how do we get them in that warm and fuzzy spot, right? And then do the webinar. So I think people that are saying webinars are dead, I think that's what they mean. Going from cold, I'm just giving them the benefit of the doubt. And yeah, I know quite a few businesses, by the way, that were running tens of millions of dollars a year cold traffic to webinar that are now not able to do it. But they got to adapt. The markets are always going to change. And if you're not willing to adapt, but if the person likes you and is warm to you, they will still show up for webinars. They will still purchase on webinars. And there's absolutely nothing dead about the actual marketing model of a webinar.
So boring webinars are dead. Not webinars are dead. And cold traffic to webinars may be mostly dead. But if you can get people to know, like, and trust you, webinars are still the best environment to convert your people into your product, your program. Is that right? Is that what I'm hearing?
In most market conditions, if you want to go scale and you want to be efficient and effective, webinar is the best of both worlds. Like, if you want to be super effective, you go in person, nose to nose, toes to toes, and you sell them one at a time. Most effective way to do it. Least efficient way to do it, because you can only sell to one person at a time. So then if you want to sell in mass, one to many, in person is still the best way to do it. You put them in a room and then you train them all day, maybe 2, maybe 3 days, and then you sell them there. That's like the best way to sell it in person with a large group of people. But that that's tough to scale. That's a lot of effort involved. So then you go online. And what most people want to do online is they want to go viral. They want to create some sort of And it's funny because I consult with a lot of these clients because they'll come to me and say, Jason, I got 6 million followers and I can't even make $600 when I post something. So what people want to do is either be efficient or effective, but they don't want to do the best of both. How can we be maximally efficient and maximally effective? And so every market has 7% of its market spend 70% of its dollars. And that's who is most attracted to webinars. They are the people that are willing to invest time and energy into learning more about something that's important to them. And so those 7% who spend most of the money, we can reach them in mass online very efficiently and convert them very effectively with a webinar. And that's why it won't quit. We can change the name of it. We can say, oh, now we do master classes instead of webinars. Okay, cool. We do master classes. We do challenges now, which is 3 webinars stacked amongst each other's, right? Or we do like whatever these long 4-hour or 8-hour call sessions are, like mini seminars, half day. We call whatever we want to call it. What we're doing is creating the strongest communication piece that we can to have the largest transformative experience that the audience can feel to as many people as we simultaneously can. And you really can't change somebody's paradigm about a problem in 5 seconds or 10 seconds or 10 minutes. You have to spend time with them, just like you can't make a baby in a month, no matter how hard you try, right? There are certain things that the market needs to have occur. So to me, the webinar is the fastest because normally you would have to spend a whole bunch more time with people in order to get them to invest significant amounts of money to have significant changes in their life. So that's why webinars are great. Now, again, I know a lot of these guys that used to do webinars alongside of Anik and myself who've given it up because their webinars were like 60 slides and they were not very good slides and they would not be scripted in the least. So they would show up and they would do this whole concept of like tell you why it's important, but not what to do. Like very misleading crap. And it used to work because like audiences were thirsty. You tell me anything about a topic and I'll listen because the alternative is nothing. I either hear you say something about it or I go thirsty and I don't hear anything about it. And so in that environment, you could do well with webinars, even though you sucked. Now, what's funny is nobody was doing big webinars back then. The webinars that my clients do these days and that I help with and that I create myself are 10 times bigger than the biggest webinars that used to be 10, 15 years ago. So it was funny. There was never a golden area back then. Everybody reminisces about the past and thinks it's better than it was. Like you couldn't target most people to get them on a webinar. Like it was a good day if you could put 200 people on a webinar one time. So yes, it was easier for smaller stakes. Nowadays, it's harder, and I don't think it is harder because I always did my webinars the same way. So, but nowadays it requires more strategy, but the stakes are significantly higher. But I get it. You know, some people just want to do the bare minimum possible, and this is not going to be that. And anything that is that, just to emphasize this point from a strategic standpoint, if I was your advisor, if anything is a trend or a fad that temporarily allows you to get results you shouldn't get, I don't want to be part of it anyway, because you can't build a house on sand. It just doesn't make sense. But that's what the market wants. So we don't create this for those, and we don't train people on webinars that follow that process. So they want the latest hack or the coolest, easiest thing or whatever. We want sustainability. And if you can create webinars the way Anik and I teach them, what you first do is you transform somebody and empower them to be better than they currently are on the topic. And then you give them an option. Do you want to take this knowledge and use it on your own? Or do you want to take this knowledge and invest in resources to make it easier, better, quicker, faster, stronger, smoother? And that's it. That's the name of the game.
I want to confront something quickly that came up that I think I hear a lot of people mislabel. And there's people listening who they've got this false notion in their head that people don't want to be sold to, right? They don't want to be pitched. I think you're famous, Jason, is talking about one time you did like an all-day webinar where all you did is pitch. And, you know, obviously that's an extreme example, but I'd love to hear you two talk about like breaking that notion, because the market, as you said, actually, I don't actually think that that's true. Even in a trust recession, people don't want to be sold. They don't want to be pitched. So add some nuance there. How do people not want to be sold to or pitched now? And how do people want to be sold to and pitched? And how does that affect how you create webinars?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the people that will tell you they don't want to be sold, will sell you really hard on that idea. And they never notice the irony of how hard they will sell you on how they don't want to be sold, right? So it's kind of funny. Everybody wants to buy under the right conditions. A reasonable person. So 97% of the population is reasonable, 3% is psychopathic. So we don't make our decisions based on the 3% that are insane. So a reasonable person loves to buy things that give them advantages they previously didn't have. Everybody loves a good deal. You know, if anybody gets like really rich and then they don't have a lot of experience, be like me growing up, and I don't think Onyx came from a well-to-do background either. Try to go into an Hermes store and buy a Birkin bag. And then watch them say, come back next month. And you're trying to spend $13,000, $14,000 with them. They say, come back next month. Maybe we'll sell you one. Then you come back next month. And they say, come back next month. And now it's 90 days in and you can't give the store $13,000. Tell me how pissed off you'll get when you're trying to buy something and you can't buy it. So people want to buy things that make them feel more of themselves. People want to buy things that allow them to do things they couldn't do before. And that is always a fact. Our goal before we ever write a webinar is to create an offer so good that we barely have to sell it. That's what we want to push towards. Get the best product first and then create the best pitch to sell it secondly. People don't want to be sold, though, under false pretenses. People don't want to be sold thinking that you're coming there just out of the goodness of your heart. And then lo and behold, you're using these dark triad principles to, make them do things they don't want to do. That's what they don't want. They don't want a lot of this bait and switch stuff that occurs out there where people think that they're coming in under one set of context and really you're doing something manipulative to them. They don't like that. People love transparency. And so one of my favorite ways to sell, and Anik does this as well, we're one of the few people who do this. We flat out say most often at the beginning of our webinars, hey, listen, I want to sell you something if you're the right customer. And we're going to figure out if it even makes sense for you to buy or not. Regardless of whether you do or don't buy, though, here's my promise to you. By the end of the webinar, you'll be able to do this thing that you couldn't do before. And hey, if I can't pull that off, then never spend any money with me. If I can't first help you for free, then why should you ever want to give me money? However, if I could help you for free, then maybe, as long as it makes sense, maybe we can enhance this relationship by trading a little bit of money for value. I don't know. How does that sound to you? People like that. They like the straightforwardness. Yeah. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Anik?
You nailed it perfect. And I'll say this. The best customers actually only want to be sold. They don't have the time for other crap. I'm a good customer. I come into a relationship, I'm a big spender. So if you've the right solution, I'm ready to buy. I'm going to make fast decisions. I'm going to cut the check and I'm not going to breathe down your neck. I'm going to let you do what you do. But I don't want the song and dance. So I'm the exact opposite. I get on, I'm like, what's the pitch? What you got? What is it? What do you promise? What are you giving? How much? Let's go. Right? And so I actually think it's the exact opposite. I think it's been psychologically proven through many actual studies of the human brain that people get a rush. It's like a high when they buy something. We love buying stuff, okay? What people mean, and this is what Jason was getting at, when they say they don't want to be sold, is they don't want to be manipulated. That's what they really mean. No one wants to be manipulated. What happens with the transparency side of things, right? What did I say earlier? I was like, I'm really feeling it. I hate to use a cliche term, but there truly is a trust recession, right? People are getting really kind of cautious because there's just a lot of bad players out there. So when you start a webinar and you're like, here's the deal, guys. Look, I have something, yes, I'm going to sell you. Like Jason said, if you're the right person, if you're not the right person, but either way, this is what I'll deliver to you. I'm not using psychological manipulation tactics. You're either in or you're not. I'm not going to sit here push you and pull and hum and haw. I understand there's plenty of crap in the industry, and I'm here to be the antithesis to that. So, guards down, relax. I'll even tell some of you point blank, honestly, if you shouldn't buy. Just saying that alone makes someone go, oh my God, okay, right? Because that's all people, they just don't want to be manipulated. And this is a funny side story. So when my wife and I were getting ready to get married, we were kind of going through this marriage course, and something led by her church, and so you got to kind of talk to each other and make some agreements. And that came up for me to tell her, like, hey, what is my what are my red lines? What's gonna really make me upset, make me feel disrespected? And I said, I've only got one rule. I was like, do not manipulate me. If there's bad news, you give me the bad news. If there's good news, you give me the good news. You give it to me straight. If you want something, you tell me exactly what it is, but don't try to manipulate it out of me. I've been surrounded growing up by a lot of people who deploy a lot of that. And I think that's what people mean. And a lot of the webinar tactics, okay, are straight shot manipulation. And if we wrap this around and bring it right back to compliance, what does the FTC have a problem with? They don't give a crap that you're selling something. Literally, the world is built off of commercial relationships. The whole economy transacts off of economic. It transacts off of like people buying stuff. So they have a clear. If you look at Section 5 and you look at all the things that they say they don't want you to do, they're all things they deem to be manipulative. And so just they don't want manipulation. And I think that this is not just something someone says in a commercial setting. Most people would agree they don't want to be manipulated in any setting. So, you know, when Jason, I remember doing an interview with Jason, right? So I remember this podcast. I came into it and I was like, hey, Jason, you know, you had done this big launch and done tens of millions of dollars. And the podcast was going to be breaking down his entire webinar model, you know, what's the psychology and this and that. And we started and I'm like, hey, man, so like, let's talk about the webinar. And Jason's like, that webinar kind of sucked. And I'm like, well, this interview just went down south. Like, what the dude? No, it didn't. And he's like, no, it wasn't the webinar. It was just the damn offer. It was just the results that were achieved from the offer. It was the proof of behind the offer. He's like, go back and look at the webinar. All we did was talk about what the study that we had done was. That's it. Like, we just went boom, boom, boom. He's like, we didn't just went over that and then like everyone just bought. And I went back and I remember looking at the webinar because after he said it, I was really intrigued and I had promoted that webinar, done incredibly well with it. And I went back and I remember I watched specifically like the price drop, you know, where we always do like 10K, then 5K. And I remember watching that webinar and it's like, this is literally how I would translate it. Jason's like, yeah, so blah, 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 blah. So look, if you're interested, we're going to go ahead and open up. And a slide shows up with the price is like this little on the slide. And it's like the most unimpressive slide. There isn't a massive bonus stack. It's not beautiful. It looked like crap. And but I'm looking at this thing on the other side of having been an affiliate who did like over $1 million in sales for that offer. And I remember going, you know what? 100% right. So there was zero psychological manipulation in that webinar. It was just, here's what we did. We did a study. We had this many people in the study. And here is the result of each and every one of them. Not hand-selected, not hand-picked, just each and every one of them. And that was the whole webinar. So anyways, that was a very long answer to a short question, but I'll summarize it this way. People love buying. People want to be sold. The best customers want to be sold. The best customers want to spend. They just don't want to be manipulated.
Okay, so this brings up another question for me. So if I'm listening and I run a webinar right now, or I've tried a webinar in the past and it didn't work, maybe I used all the manipulative sales tactics and I felt a little icky about them, but my mentor told me to do it. So I did it, right? What do I do instead? Like you just made it sound so easy, but then you get to trying to type a deck and you're like, holy crap, this is hard. There's so much to put together. And what do I say? And what do I not say? And what are the things then, the psychological drivers that are actually making people buy? What are the ingredients in the recipe that are making people buy today if I'm going to discard all the manipulative sales tactics?
I got to answer this before Jason because I'm going to set you right up.
I would love to hear it. Yeah.
It's the damn offer. That's all it is. Okay. So the people that are failing at webinars for the most part are forcing the offer. So they believe that they're going to concoct this product and this offer, and then the webinar will magically create demand for it. Whereas it's the exact opposite. So I've said this for a long time. You can have the worst salesperson on the planet and they will sell if the product is amazing. You can have the best salesperson on the planet and they may completely flop if the product is crap. I use an outlandish example. True Ferrari, real Ferrari. It's at the dealership. It's certified. It's a $500,000 Ferrari currently being sold for $50,000. You can have the worst freaking salesperson sell that car like hotcakes. Take the same scenario, take the best salesperson, replace the Ferrari with a Kia and 10x the price, and good luck. Right? Good luck. It's the offer that's going to drive most of that. So when I get on with a client or anyone that says, my webinar is sucking, first thing I say, let me see the offer. And then I asked him, how'd you come up with this? And it's always, well, I had this, I had that, I had, no. Did you go through the process of figuring out what the hell the person wants, where they are, what their problems are, what their objections are, what they're thinking at that time? And so I remember, and this is where I'm going to set Jason up for this. Jason, and I've known each other probably for what, 15 plus years. And so here was the ebb and flow I saw with Jason. He'd come in, all right, and he would just like have his offer skyrocket, and you'd see nothing but Jason. And he'd crush it on an offer, and then he'd just like dive underwater and like disappear for a little bit. You're like, where the hell did Jason go? You know, and reach out to him, he'd respond right away and be like, what are you doing? And he's like, I don't know, hanging out, doing this, I'm doing that, or whatever. And then like a year and a half later, like there he is again. I'm like, what the hell is this? It was a literal ebb and flow. And so one time I remember asking him, I was like, what do you do? He goes, dude, I'm like I just sit in and I wait. And I just wait for the right offer. And I just say no to a ton of them. And he's like, the reason I look like a hero is just because I wait for the right offer. And I wait for an offer that's so damn good, it just sells itself. And then the rest of it is easy. He goes, just don't tell anybody. But that's my like secret hack.
The dirty secret is out.
Yeah,
Jason has
and
been
I remember
outed
thinking, well,
publicly
he's
on
talked about it
Express
publicly
Skill
now.
Show.
But
Yeah.
But I remember sitting there laughing, and I was like, you son of a bitch. Like, that's pretty smart, right? Like, he just comes in, makes a ton of money. In his regard, he's like, I work hard, but it's easy because whatever the thing I'm selling is so easy to sell. And then I just kind of chill until the next one shows up. And so the person who even I credit to be the number one, in psychology of webinar sales is on the record for saying that it's not the psychology used on the webinar at all that's important for sales. It's the offer, and he just waits for it. So anyways, I teed you up there. Jason, do you agree? Did I hear and remember that correctly?
Yeah, it's you can't force market conditions to be something they're not. So if you don't have a great offer, it's better to sharpen the axe before you chop down the tree than to try to chop the tree down with a dull axe. These days, unfortunately, I'm way too busy because there's so many good offers out there that it's unlike it used to be in the past. Now, here's the other mistake that I see a lot of people make, because obviously we want to cook a good meal, so we need good ingredients. So most people are trying to cook a gourmet meal with stuff they bought from Walmart. It just doesn't work. The other problem, though, is people don't right size to their situation. They see people like Anik out there. They see myself out there, and we're doing it at the highest level. And they want to be like us, but they're not of stature yet to where we are currently at. They want to jump right up and sell a $3,000 product to an audience that's cold to them. They want to compete in markets where the best of the best play in. And, we work with each other, but we also secretly try to outsell each other. Like very competitive stuff, right? And they want to model that because they don't have any other models to look at. But unfortunately, it's too much too soon. Like they're just not ready there yet. They don't have the positioning to pull that off. Like I can get on a webinar and be like, I've done this for 18 years. I have 30. This is part of the offer that we do for webinars is I have 32 slide decks that have each generated at least 6 figures, individual different webinars in a variety of circumstances for myself or for my clients. And I can just give that away as a bonus. There are probably only 4 people on the planet who have done 32 different individual 6-figure sessions on a webinar period. There are very few people that have done that even once or twice. So if I come in and I'm speaking about my experience and I have that as a proof element that can validate and back that up, and then I can show the assets that I've accumulated over 18 years that I can now demonstrate in front of them in real time, I can do things most people can't. That's not where I started, though. I started selling very inexpensive products on webinars. Low stakes. I mean, they were high stakes for me. If I sold a $200 product to 14 people on a webinar when I first started, we called that an incredibly fantastic day. I didn't have these convoluted offerings, and I wasn't selling to like a phase 5 of the market. Phase 5 is I just heard about this thing yesterday, and now I'm interested in it. I was selling to a phase 1 of the market. I bought 15 other products from 15 other people on this topic, and you're the 16th person. And I'll buy it from you more because I'm interested in the topic and less because you're the person selling it. You just happen to be on the shelf and I'm walking by and I'll throw it into my cart, right? So I right-sized what I could do from a skill and from an asset capability, and also to the market that was easiest to serve at the time. And, you make $10,000, $15,000 off of one of those webinars, but we lose perspective very quickly based upon some of the things we've done throughout the years to a majority of people. having a $15,000 webinar, like that is a game changer, a life changer, but they have to set their sights lower. So one thing that makes an offer so good is it cannot be substitutable. So you can't find something else similar to it on the market. This is the ultimate level scarcity. It's the only one of its kind, and there's nothing that drives value and demand more than scarcity. So if you're new and you're just starting off, this is how you can be scarce. You go nichier and more specific into a topic than anybody else will. Because guys like me and Anik, we're not going to stoop down anymore for smaller pockets of the market, but you can. So if you are training and teaching and speaking on a very specific problem to a very specific market, you will beat me and Anik because you're the only one talking to that market, and you're the only one that will give a solution specific and tailor-made to that market, and you will beat us. And then guess what? You stack the results of that and invest it into the next webinar and then the next offer. You can say, now that we do this, what can we do that we couldn't do before? And you add it up. But everybody wants to fight the black belt the first day they step into the dojo, and then they get their ass kicked, right? So like, let's start with the 6 and 7 year old kids, beat them up for a little bit, get our white belt, and then we'll work our way up over time. Yeah.
Just want to acknowledge on record that we don't publicly endorse beating up children on the
Metaphorically, of
show.
course.
I just haven't
We
fun
don't
with you.
endorse beating up children.
So here's what I just heard. The ingredients are right market, right offer, right positioning. Right?
And right expectation. I think that's what Jason was talking about. Right? There's so much that goes into a webinar promotion. You know, I would do huge webinars, right? I've done webinars where we had 3,000 plus people on, and the webinar itself would be a 7+ figure webinar. And of course, you know, I was proud of that, and I would talk about that. And then people would come to me and say, how did you do it? And I was like, well, I can tell you, but I would never recommend you to do that because I spent maybe $100,000 in ads, which I would never recommend you to do because you don't have the warm audience I have. My 100K was a lot longer than yours would. You'll end up attracting a ton of really cold people that won't convert. You'll blow it. I spend $100 grand on warm people. Plus I know how to do ad buying. B, I'm really good at warming them up. Like I have a really good psychological sequence to get them ready for the webinar. And that takes time to learn. I can't teach it to you. There's no formula for that. You have to do enough of these to understand the pulse of like open rates and click rates and like how things are working and kind of concocting that. So don't go up against me, right? Don't do it. Now, at the same time, there's a level and a playing field where you do want to go up against, right? So I would compete with Jason on the amazing.com launches. Right? Because that was fun, but we had a fighting chance, right? Like I was like, okay, I have a fighting chance here, right? I understood what he was doing. He was making these partnerships. I was like, oh, I could do the same thing. We can have a fighting chance. The funny story was when Robert Kiyosaki entered the field, and I was like, oh, hell's no, right? This is my territory. I'm not letting this man beat me because I revered him so much. Gave me hell. And what's funny is his team was just like, la-di-da-di-da, email. They didn't know what the hell they were doing, and I was going 1,000 miles an hour trying to compete. But there are times where that competition will up-level you, and it's the right time for it. And the example I always give is, you want to win the Olympic gold medal, you're going to spend 15 years, 20 years training. And there, it's no different. Jason and I have spent 15, 20 years training, literally. Like, that's exactly how much time we spent doing webinars. And so we're not trying to say that you can't have the big days, but when you're coming in with that expectation from day one, you have stacked every card against you. So the odds have been tipped in disappointment, in favor of disappointment. Because there's like 17 elements that need to come together for a powerful webinar. It's not just the deck. It's the offer. It's the audience. It's the warmth of the audience. It's what the audience believes before they get there about the topic, about you, just so many things, right? And so to converge all that together, the good news is you start to see increasing results rapidly. A lot more rapidly, I think, in the webinar game than in anything else. You might do your first webinar, get 15 grand. Don't be too surprised if the next one you do 25. Like, that's a pretty big jump. It's possible. So, yeah.
Massive. I love the framework you guys have laid out. Let's talk a little bit about where webinars are going and specifically why you guys are so excited about this new thing you're promoting together, Board of Webinars. Why are you so excited about webinars right now? And what do people need to know on the horizon? Like, give us just some of the inside juicy stuff that you guys are excited about that's coming out soon, probably like right around when this episode drops, maybe even before it drops, that's kind of contained within this this board of webinars product you've been building in the lab?
I think AI is going to be an amazing thing for the few of us who understand how to use it. It's going to be frustrating for the many of us who try to half-ass AI, which is unfortunately that's how humanity works. 95% of them try to use the least amount of it possible and mimic each other, and then they wonder why they all get a traffic jam trying to go through the same door. So the creative use and the non-obvious use of AI combined with webinars equals an opportunity on webinars I have never seen before. And I'm super excited about that. And I'll give you a couple examples here. This is really silly, but so if you give somebody price alone when you're selling a product, be it on a webinar or anywhere for that matter, if you just walk up to somebody and say, this is $12,000, then they will only focus on the cost and they will not focus on the value. And then they couldn't appreciate the thing and buy it, even if it was the best thing in the world for them to buy. So you always have to put things in context, and price is one of the easiest examples of context. So one of the ways that you can contextualize price is you could say to somebody somewhere along the lines of, hey, listen, other programs you may have invested in the past that only had a fraction of what we deliver for you typically go for $25,000. And they would say, yes, that's true. And they would acknowledge that. And then you juxtapose that. You can say, hey, we pretty much have everything all those other courses have, and we have some of the stuff that they don't. And ours is just $4,997. Now they're like, wow, that's a really good deal because they can appreciate value, not just price. Now, what's funny is if I sit down with a client, and this is just one micro example, and be like, let's give them alternatives of things they could invest in or experiences they may have had so they could better understand and appreciate price. And they draw a blank. And I'm like, this is not a hard question. But it's not hard. Just like tying shoes is not hard to somebody who knows how to do it. But you try to teach a kid how to tie shoes, and it's hard at first until it's not. So if you don't have these muscles, if you haven't had this reps, if you haven't had these experiences, coming up with these examples to put into the framework, to put into the technique is difficult. AI does a really good job of coloring inside the lines as long as you give it the artwork to fill out and tell it what colors to use. So the 80% of effort on webinars that only amounts to 20% of its results, or the other way to look at it, the 80% of the time you spend on a webinar that only matters for 20% of how effective it is, that stuff AI is now pretty much automated if you can do it right. So these little details that are necessary but not sufficient to be successful with webinars have now become this easy to create. And so many people who never start on a webinar, the reason they never start is because of the small little friction points that don't really matter. And what we're able to do with AI these days is we make that stuff inconsequential. Now we get it done almost as good as Anik and I could do it. If Anik and I can do an A+, this does a B+. So it's pretty good. But right now, at best, for most of the people we're teaching, they do a D- at most. So a B+ is better than a D-. And then as they get the reps in and do it, they automatically internalize it, and it becomes unconscious competence. By doing, you learn more by doing than you ever could by studying, and we can get you into the field, and we can get you doing it faster. Like I have an AI prompt right now that does nothing more but handle objections. So if somebody's on a webinar, because I've done this a few thousand times, probably tens of thousands of times, and somebody says to me, I don't have enough time to do this. And there's I know 16 different ways to answer just that one question. I don't have enough time to do this. One of the ways I could say is, how do you know you don't have enough time? Your mom told me you had too much time and you were looking for something new to do with it. That's a literal close I would use. And they'd be like, what do you mean? I'm just trying to break a pattern, because people get into a limitation and they get stuck there, right? That's the technique behind it. But it's like, the AI can now say, Fladlien would say close like this, and then you could just read the close. I don't have enough time. Okay, so if you don't have enough time, how are you going to solve this problem? If you are willing to admit to me you don't have enough time, that means we can't solve the problem, because this problem does take time to solve. So are you okay with living with this problem for the rest of your life? And they'll be like, no. Okay, so how do we work with whatever time you do have to get the most out of it? So by the way, this is technique. The difference between manipulation and technique, let's parse that for a second, right? Like if somebody needs help with a block that they can't get past, a good coach or a good leader or somebody that is there to help empower them will help them untangle that issue. And that's what for webinars, one of the best parts about webinars is I can do that in real time. Now, I could spend 4 hours teaching that technique to an audience of how to handle objections like time objections and other objections. Or I can now just give them an AI tool and they can just read it. And they can just say, okay, if you have time, this is one of the ways in which you could look at managing your time, and then just read it. And I've trained the AI to not be as hardcore as me because I have my own distinct flavor and personality and style. That is a little too much for some people, and they probably couldn't pull it off. So we can tone down the personality and we can just be procedural. And that works really well for most people. Most people who get 2 hours into a webinar, who are active on the webinar and are excited about it, but haven't said yes yet, they're the best buyers usually, but they're just having difficulty of making sure that the decision makes sense for them. So we help them make the decision make sense if, in fact, they should buy it. And we also help them determine to say no if it doesn't make sense that they shouldn't buy it. But we have to work them through whatever they're saying to themselves or whatever excuses that they have to determine if this makes sense or if it doesn't make sense. And most people, again, they won't do that on a webinar because they don't know how. And they don't want to spend the time to learn. And it's difficult to learn. And now we can get them 80% of the way there pretty quickly. And now they're excited because now they get to help people. I mean, when I sell, guys, at the end of the day, people usually thank me whether they buy or not because I empower them to make better decisions. Whether the decision is to buy or not doesn't matter. They now see how I can help them untangle contradictive thoughts that they have in their head. And that goes with them in every area for the rest of their life. And that's true service of the webinar that allows it to do that a VSL can't do, or that a video can't do, or that other media can't do, that is unique to the webinar. So to me, that's the most exciting thing is I can take somebody who doesn't speak English very well, who would usually use that as an excuse. Well, I can't do webinars because I don't speak English very well. And now that's not an issue anymore, because the AI will smooth out. First of all, that's not an issue anyway. That's all purely imaginative in your mind. Nobody really cares about how good or bad your English really is, as long as you have a good message and you can communicate it with clarity. However, I've now just removed that excuse. And so we're bringing in people who have never even considered webinars before and having them do webinars simply because these little cares that don't really matter are now minimized. And now we can get on with what really matters. So I think this is going to be the best year ever for webinars.
Huge. Massive. You just got me excited to launch a webinar, so I love that.
Let's go.
Anik, anything you're excited about with the board of webinars coming out that you want to spotlight for people?
Yeah, a couple of things. So first and foremost, a lot of people get stuck trying to create a webinar on the stuff that doesn't matter much anyways. So they are bogged down and confused and overwhelmed by the things that in the end aren't going to be important. So back to the 80-20, I love how, and this is credit to Jason for taking that 80% away. So now if you've had that hurdle, it's gone. So we can get, it's as simple as this. Tell me to write a book. It's a blank page. Good luck. I'm going to sit there and I don't want to do it. It's a blank page. I don't want to start writing. Write some nonsense on there and then tell me. And I'll change the whole damn page, but I'll do it right away because there was something there, right? But what's really cool with AI is it doesn't have to be that bad. It will be really good. So you now are going to get past this massive, massive hump in the beginning. So with what Jason and I are creating together, that 80% of that battle is gone for those who are struggling to get into webinars or who have been challenged to even enter it or been intimidated by it. Big, big evolution for those of them. Those who are already doing webinars, it's a no-brainer. It's easy. You come on, you pick up one different close, one different technique, one way to handle an objection better, one thing from me about how to warm up that lead better for the webinar, one traffic. It just takes one. And the ROI on your investment in that whole program is, God knows how much fold. So you look at both of those markets and there's a clear reason for them to move forward with what we're offering. That's what's got me excited. The second piece of the excitement is, quite frankly, just 15 years in the making. Jason and I have been helping one another, learning from one another, being in the industry, and somehow it just panned out and worked out for us to come do this together. And what's really cool is look, I'm pretty good at webinars. I can write a great webinar. I can convert well. I can pitch a good webinar. I think I've been able to prove that. But I would not say that that's my calling or that that's the thing I'm like the best at. Jason is. Like, that's just his thing. Like, I genuinely believe, and I think we can go for a world record one day where we just tell him, like, Jason, start talking about webinars, and we just time him. And I think he'll be like 3 days in, no sleep, and he'll just still be talking because he loves that stuff, right? So great, we put Jason in his zone of genius. You know what I love doing? I love building funnels. I love the front end. I love doing paid traffic. Do you know the last thing I do typically at 1 a.m. before I go to bed? I'm inside my I'm inside my paid traffic accounts. I'm having a ball in there. I'm looking at data. I'm data driven. I like all of that stuff, and I love the psychology of warming someone up and the micro commitment process. Hell, I spent a lot of money on buying, interactivemarketing.com, and I was for a long time in this whole messaging of like direct marketing is actually changing to interactive marketing. So it's perfect, right? You take my expertise and the thing that I'm really good and passionate about, which is everything that happens before they're on the webinar. Then you take what Jason's really good at, and then you AIify both of those things. And it's like, how the hell do you not show up to this thing? And how I would challenge people to attend it and tell me how we didn't help. I just can't possibly fathom or see that, regardless of whether they invest in the program behind it or not. That's what's got me excited. So on the front end of it, right, board of webinars, okay, I'm sorry. I'm offering for free 22 interviews with some of the top marketers, webinar marketers on the planet that you can get for free. So go ahead and tell me that's not worth your time or energy, and like convince me that that's not a good offer. And that's what I get to lead with. So that's awesome. So that's got me excited out the gate. And on the back end of that, they're leading right into this thing where Jason and I have truly solved a problem, a big problem. Notice how Jason and I didn't come together to put this together. We could have done it years ago, right? We've been doing webinars forever, but it worked out when we truly both felt it's not just another training program. It's not just us giving, where we know most people which won't do it. They'll learn it and they'll be like, oh, that's cool. Sounded good. I learned a couple things, but I'm not going to do it. No, now people can do it. They're going to be empowered to do it. And that's what's got me excited.
So good. Well, I'm excited to see board webinars drop. I think I'm going to be the first customer even after this conversation. So guys, thanks so much for your time together today. If you enjoyed the content today, everyone, make sure you like, subscribe, throw a comment of appreciation for Jason and Anik's genius on today's show. And we can't wait to see the as the rest of this year unfolds, how many people, how many experts board of webinars is going to impact this year. It's going to be exciting, guys. So thanks for sharing it with us.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Awesome, guys. Thanks for being here today. We'll see y'all soon.